now let's talk to a guy who had a falling out with mainstream media, just like I did, and started his own network, just like I did. Hey, it's Rick Sanchez. Rick, of course, has been on CNN, Fox News, NBC News, Univision, and iHeartRadio. He was a legend in Miami, the biggest anchor there by a country mile. He was the first Latino ever to have a show named after him on cable news. Rick's List on CNN. Then he went and started this huge company, and now he's got a podcast network. That's the Agua Media podcast network that he's the president and CEO of. So that's a lot of things you've done, Rick. How are you, brother?
Great to see you, Cenk. You are, you know what? Based on the description that you just gave, I guess I stand on your shoulders, brother.
Well, I don't know about that, but we're standing shoulder to shoulder right here. We're both in Miami at the same time. We've done a lot of similar things. All right, so before we get to your new podcasting network, which I love,
sure.
You tell us two things, because the big things that people might remember you for, obviously CNN. So you have fond memories of CNN, bad memories of CNN. What's your takeaway from your time on cable news?
Well, I mean, I think there could have been a little more forgiving. I think I made a mistake. I wish I hadn't made a mistake. I think we all make mistakes in our lives. And when I look back on that experience, that was a pretty cool thing that we were doing. I mean, we were the first show to come around. First of all, here you got this Beaner, right? You got this Hispanic guy. You got this Oye. You got a guy who speaks English as his second language on television. We are 20% of the population of the United States, and for the first time in our history, finally one of us was doing a newscast on CNN. That was pretty cool. Now, there's a certain immaturity to a person like me because I grew up with parents who never made more than $10,000 a year combined income. So it's not like we had a family lawyer or a PR department. In many ways, I used to, step on myself sometimes because I didn't know what I was doing. And the experience at CNN was cool because maybe because of that, maybe because I wasn't strategic. I just went out there and I did a really cool newscast with a bunch of really cool, fun people, and we broke all kinds of metrics in terms of doing things like we were the first ones who actually started using social media on TV. And it went over very well. And this dude named John Klein, who was the president of the company at the time, called me in one day and he says, "You now have established the highest non-white ratings in the history of this network. Nobody's ever done what you guys are doing now with Rick's List." So that was really, really cool. And I always felt like I was fighting for the little guy because I am a little guy. That's all I've ever been. So that's the good stuff, right?
Yeah, so Rick, it is, now that I've thought about it, it's startling how similar we are. So when I was at MSNBC in their 6 o'clock hour, I was the only person that ever beat Fox News in any rating demo. I beat him in 18 to 34. And so I had the younger viewers, you had the non-white viewers, and they didn't like what I said either. So I have and by the way, English is also my second language. I have a conspiracy theory about why CNN fired me. Okay, now I don't generally like conspiracy theories. I don't believe in any of them, except, come on, JFK was not shot by Harvey Oswald. Keep it real, okay? So, it wasn't what they said. It was a couple of weeks before that you did a segment about money in politics. And I remember covering it on the Young Turks going, "Oh my God, I've never seen that on cable news." He's talking about the donors of the politicians. Never seen it. Oh boy, he's gonna be in trouble. And then like a couple of weeks later, you're fired. Okay, so what do you think about my conspiracy theory?
No, listen, I was ignorantly, and that's an interesting choice of words, by the way. I'm gonna go with it, or maybe innocently, challenging some of the things, some of the normalcies that most people would never challenge. And I think there's like these unwritten rules that the Rachel Maddows and the Anderson Coopers and the others in this cable news business know that I didn't. So I went after whatever I thought was interesting. And yeah, I talked about our foreign policy being an absolute unmitigated disaster. I went after politicians and told people on the air exactly who they were taking money from, how much money they were taking from whom, and then how they voted in response to the money they took. I was doing the kind of segments that a lot of people didn't normally do, and I was being kind of fed these segments because I was very much into the whole, at the time, social media really meant something. It was a democratizing force. And I was, being spoon-fed great stuff from people who were really smart. And then I would turn around and use it on the air. And the powers that be, the elders of CNN, didn't like that. They didn't like my using social media. They thought I was, who the hell is this guy? And why is he making these decisions? And why is he putting people on the air? And I could sense all along that there were a lot of people at the higher ranks of CNN, the ivory towers, so to speak, that didn't like me and were looking for me to give them a reason to bounce me. And eventually, I guess I did, or they did, and that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, I know, because see, people don't know this. One last thing before we get to your podcasting network, because there's some great shows on there. I'm genuinely curious about them, okay? So what did you do after CNN? Because you kind of hit it big.
Yeah, I did. I know, I founded a $4.4 billion healthcare company. And I came to South Florida and I learned, and there's a lesson here for all of us, that whatever skills you have are transferable, and we all are capable of remaking ourselves if we're ever cast in the situation where we have to stretch ourselves by digging deep into what it is that we have. I always thought I was just a dumbass guy who went to journalism school and learned to be an anchor and then learned to read a teleprompter and learned to be pretty good at thinking and talking on TV and all that kind of stuff. And I'm a pretty good writer and producer. And that's all I thought I knew. But then all of a sudden, when nobody would hire me and CBS told me, no, you're tainted, we can't touch you. And NBC said the same thing and ABC said the same thing. And everybody said the same thing. They said, you're never gonna work in this industry again, you're finished. So I had to go and teach school at my kid's school. And I got a radio gig working at the local radio station here in South Florida, WIOD. And then I got a job doing a television program in Spanish, which, and I put all that together and I went in my closet late at night and I cried a lot and wondered why this was happening, because I didn't want my kids to know I was going through a real tough time. But what that taught me was that I had a brand. And if the big guys at the networks didn't want them, it's okay, because at some level, somebody thought that my brand was important. In fact, because CNN fired me, a lot of people thought I was more curious and more important. So I learned branding, I learned advertising, and I learned that my brand, Rick Sanchez, should not be just given to a radio station, that I should find a business, and then I can do the marketing and the branding and the messaging, and find some people who know the other part of the business. And this happened to be medicine. And together we built a healthcare company, which in 5.5 years, because of some of this triangulation branding that I came up with, which is kind of a long explanation, but if anybody ever wants to know about it, check it out. Go to Rick Sanchez News, my podcast, or find me, or call Cenk. He's got my phone number. And yeah, I learned that you can build a company, and that's what we did. I built a television show. I went to a radio station. I went to a television station. I said, give me half of your avails. That's all I need, and I'll work for free. I work for free, and in 5.5 years, we went from a clinic essentially with like 80 patients to now having 300,000 patients around the United States. And we're the fastest growing, serving the underserved, helping people who normally would not get good health care. And we're a $4.4 billion publicly traded company. Pretty cool.
That's amazing. That's just, look, here we go. That's amazing. I'm not sure that anyone has handled being canceled better than you have.
Thanks, man. That's nice.
It was actually probably the best thing that ever happened to you. Jesus. So God bless on that. All right, Rick, tell me about the podcasting network. Tell me something about your show and the other shows.
Well, it almost has something to do with what we were just talking about. I mean, I believe in God, and I believe that when you're blessed the way I was, I went from the depths of despair to suddenly, being a somewhat wealthy person, I could have taken a couple of different paths, and one of them would have been to just disappear and never look back, and get a yacht and do those islands in the Bahamas that you and I are very familiar with. And that doesn't mean I don't enjoy getting on a boat and going fishing once in a while, because it's a lot of fun. But I told my wife, I said, this is our opportunity to do something important. So I decided, when that happened, that I wanted to at least create something that gives a voice to those who have been too often voiceless in this country. So I created, along with Saul Trujillo, my mentor, a great man, this Agua Media, and Agua Media is basically a media outlet for 20% of the population, who I believe still, and will argue, is horribly underserved. We're 20% of the population of the United States. Latinos in America are. We are the third fastest growing GDP in the world, ahead of the United States itself. Only behind China and India as the fastest growing GDP. If the United States, if Latinos in America were a country, they would be the third fastest growing economy in the world. I mean, wow. Latinos are so misunderstood. They think we all just got here last week. They think that we're all sitting around watching Telemundo, telenovelas, and Univision, when in actuality, 80% of us are US citizens, and 95% of Latinos in the United States speak English under the age of 41. I could go on, but this is a very important story that doesn't seem to be told. It's not told by Hollywood. It's not told by the media. It's not told by the left. It's not told by the right. So I think it's time to tell it. So I'm kind of gonna put my money where my mouth is, and I'm gonna try and tell this story. And that's why Agua Media lives, because we need this voice, No,
that's so true. And as I was reading more about it, I thought, there's no reason for this to not, it's crazy that it doesn't exist already. Boom, and you solved that. So Jalissa is someone who's been on our shows before. She's doing a show that really struck me on the network as like, wait a minute, celebrating amazing Latinos in American history. That I'm not sure I've ever seen that anywhere.
There are so many stories about who we are. It's amazing. Jalissa will remind you as well that in many ways the Texas Rangers are no different than the KKK. I'm sorry to say, at least historically, and that one very important thing, and I'll leave you with this, Cenk. Latinos got here like 60 years before Plymouth Rock, right? I mean, in St. Augustine, they celebrated Thanksgiving in 1560. And that's not to say, we were here for, it's just that it's important stuff. We should know that we are a part of the fabric of America, Latinos are. And oftentimes people, I don't think, understand that. And that's all we want to say.
Yeah, and there's so many different shows on the podcasting network. It's also about Latino celebrities and stars and athletes, and you got Rick Sanchez news on there, and it's totally desperately needed. And of course, Rick's point is right. I mean, right wingers amuse me to no end. Tucker Carlson saying that no Americans invented tacos and it's our food, and then like Los Angeles, yeah. I wonder what that means in English.
Across the board. And you know what's great, Cenk, and I gotta thank you for this. I mean, I've been watching your work over the years, and you and I've always been friends, or at least associates in the business. We've always had a chance. It's not like we hang out together all the time. I don't want to leave a misimpression, but you've always defended that. You were one of the few people who got it. That debate you did with Tucker, I mean, that's amazing. You said the things that nobody else would say, and you told them at the right time and to the right guy. And there's something to that. And I just want you to know, as a Latino, it's not like I speak for all Latinos, but that's appreciated, dude. It really, really is.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Rick. That's really, really nice of you to say. All right, everybody, you got to check out Agua Media and Rick Sanchez News. You guys are gonna love it. Rick, thank you for coming on again. We appreciate it, brother.
Let's do it again. I love talking to you, Cenk. You're a good friend, and I really appreciate it. All right.
All right, absolutely.
God bless.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.